This experiment was published in the Journal of Scientific Exploration in 1994. It begins with human DNA once again, and this is a very precise kind of human DNA. It comes from umbilical cords of newborns because that DNA is what's called very pristine DNA. It hasn't been eroded over time, as happens as we mature in life. So it's a very pristine kind of DNA. And the DNA is isolated in one vessel, and that is encased in another vessel to make sure that there are no other influences that are happening from outside to influence the DNA. So here is the experiment. This very unique DNA is now placed within the range of the field of a human heart we described in an earlier episode. Every human heart, if you recall, has a field of energy that extends beyond the physical heart for a distance between 5 to 8 feet. And that field, it is an electrical and a magnetic field that we can measure with conventional equipment. So the question is, through that field, is the DNA influenced by the emotions of another person? Can our emotions actually influence the DNA in our bodies? Before I tell you the experiment, let me just share a little bit about why this is important. Human DNA, when it is in our cells, it is coiled in very specific kinds of ways. And what scientists have found is that in the presence of certain emotions that we would call negative emotions, and I don't really like to use that term, but I'm going to use it to be clear on what we're talking about. So when we talk about emotions, for example, of anger or hate or jealousy or rage or frustration, those that we would typically consider as negative emotions, they have an effect on the DNA within our bodies. And the effect is that in the presence of those emotions, the DNA is actually, the coil is tightened. It's tightened like a little knot. And that's important because when it is tightened in this way, the DNA does not express to its fullest capacity. So negative emotions tighten the coil and prevent the DNA from expressing the fullest capacity of whatever it is that it is expressing, whether it's our immune response or our anti-aging hormones or whatever it is. The DNA simply cannot do its full complement of what it's designed to do. So from this description, you can probably imagine what the positive emotions do. Positive emotions actually loosen the DNA. They relax the DNA. So these are the emotions of compassion, gratitude, appreciation, for example. Those kinds of emotions actually relax the DNA within our bodies and allow that fullest expression. Knowing this, the scientists wanted to see what effect human emotions from one person would have upon DNA that's not in that person's body, but it's in this special container that was designed. So that's the experiment. Here's what they found. The human DNA was isolated, and in the presence of the positive emotions, in the presence of the gratitude, appreciation, love, and compassion, what happened was the DNA actually began to relax, and it relaxed so much that it began to unwind itself. The two coils began to unwind as if the DNA was about to replicate itself and produce a new strand of DNA in the presence of positive emotion. All that was happening was gratitude, appreciation, care, compassion, and the DNA was responding in such a positive manner that the DNA acted, again, as if it was about to reproduce itself in a new, vitalized, healed state. So this is something that scientists were not expecting. So now we've seen the results of these two experiments. In the presence of the positive emotion, the DNA is relaxed. In the presence of negative emotions, such as anger, hate, jealousy, rage, the DNA was tight like a little knot. It coiled up very, very tightly. And this is telling the scientists something that we've never seen demonstrated under laboratory conditions before. Anecdotally, it may have been suspected. But this is the first time in a laboratory environment that we could actually see human emotion intentionally created by those trained to create very specific kinds and very specific qualities of emotion. The human emotion changed the shape of the DNA. It changed the ability of the DNA to fully express the full complement of what it is, whatever that DNA is expressing. So I'm going to share with you now directly. I want you to hear from the scientists. Quote, individuals trained in feelings of deep love and appreciation were able to intentionally change the shape of the DNA in their bodies. And they went on to say that human emotion produces effects which defy conventional laws of physics.